Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 47. The warehouse is open. Collector profile time. We welcome aboard Derek Newton. Derek is a Caps collector, as you can see behind him. He has three beautiful sweaters. I believe it's a Lars Eller. It's a TVR and a Nicholas Backstrom, the reverse retro style right in the middle. We'll get into Derek's world of collecting in just a second. Let me nerd out, because that's what I get to do here on Tales from the Warehouse, Derek, and I'm glad you're aboard for this recording. Again, I believe we've done 47 of these, and this will be the 47th. It is as we record this, super exciting time for everybody that dabbled in the set ones, because they've started to come in. Our friend Jeff Spade, who at MeiGray, MeiGray.com, is the head of the NHL program. He's the NHL program director. He's been super busy getting boxes from teams and deliveries as things start to come in, and people who pre-ordered, and you can always pre-order, sales at MeiGray.com, or just directly contact your sales lead with any of the member clubs, whether it be Philadelphia, Nashville, New Jersey, Washington, now Minnesota, and Columbus. There are your half dozen teams. So contact them, get online, get in line, and maybe you'll have a shot at your favorite player or favorite style or something like that. But right about now is when things are starting to get super busy again for our friend Jeff Spade and those who authenticate that deal directly with the teams. And Derek, we can get into the excitement of it. You know, you're a Caps collector. I collect some Capitals as well. You being in the, in the DC area, the DMV, or of the area and whatnot. So you know this vibe well. We'll get to your start in the hobby in just a second, but give me just a little vibe on what this time of year. This is, I don't want to be all Christmassy, but it is the most wonderful time of the year because now things are coming in, my man.
Oh, for sure. This, I always feel like set ones end. So my birthday is December 19th. They generally end right around then. Sometimes they extend a little bit more, which is fine. We're never going to say no to extra games. But it always ends up being Christmas to New Year's time frame. The set ones end, and then, as long as Dave does his part, we get the shirts, pretty quick. And the wear, I've been tracking pretty hard. Wear looks pretty good, lots of marks, some good quality Getty images with some good repairs on certain shoulders and reinforced arms, or whatever the new Fanatics jerseys have, supposedly. It's exciting. Biased, of course, Caps have a patch this year and a cool, retro third. So it's definitely a good time to be a Caps fan. And obviously the on-ice product.
Yeah, of course, it's been a whale of a season thus far for those of us here in and around Washington, D.C. It's Derek Newton. It's Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 47. It's a collector profile. Love doing these because Derek and I met at an expo years and years ago. I was pretty sure I met him, but you meet, it's one of the joys of the expos, and we'll talk about those a little later on as well, because they always seem to come up. You meet collectors you've not met before. And when this was set up, this date, they're like, yeah, you're going to talk to Derek Newton. I'm like, I think I met him. I think we have met, but he's one of those faces you're like, yeah, I think we talked to him. So anyway, it's always good to reacquaint with somebody. Tell me a little bit about your start in the hobby as far as what led you to the game horns.
So, it's kind of similar to a lot of the profiles you guys have done. I actually interned with the Caps while I was at George Mason. That was my senior internship. And I've been a hockey fan since I was a kid. Used to go to the Cap Center back when they wore the whites at home, which is the way to go, in my opinion. But
it just sounds goofy if you say rock the white, though, Derek.
I know. The whole rock the red thing is a big deal, and I get it. I was a communications guy, so I get marketing and all that stuff. But the whites, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, the whites are my preference.
You and me both, sir.
But anyway, getting back to after I'd interned, ended up not working for him out of school after the internship. It just 65 hours a week for like $20K living in Fairfax. It doesn't really
the math ain't mathin', as the kids like to say.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I actually remember the Caps had a message board way back in the day. Well, I was big Dinas Zubers fan at the time. He was always great to work with from a perspective of when I was an intern, trying to get guys to do an appearance or whatever. Love the way he played. Good, solid player. Maybe never reached his total potential, but was always a good player. And I posted on the Caps message board looking for an authentic Zubris jersey. Couldn't get it at the arena, really. They didn't have the customization at that point. No dice, didn't get any bites. But a fellow collector, Alan Reinfleisch, messaged me and said, hey, you're going to spend whatever at the time, I don't know, $250 on an authentic back then. He's like, for a little bit more, you can get a gamer. And at that point, I didn't even know what gamer really meant. So started going back and forth with Alan, and next thing I know, he directs me to MeiGray. And I think about a week later, maybe, I hit the button on I want to say it was an 0506 white Matt Pettinger. And that was the first shirt I ever bought.
Your gateway sweater.
Yep. And I love Pettinger, hard-nosed player, played his ass off, scored his 12 goals, 15 goals a year. But that was it. Once I got it in, the rest was history. And I feel like that's very similar to a lot of these collector profiles. Once you get that box in, you're hooked. And if you're not, then it's just not for you.
Did the path take you to other sports or only NHL and only Caps?
So we used to go to, I work at the Navy Yard in DC. So I dabbled with the Nats. They had their in-park shop open for a while. I don't even know if they still do.
Right on the concourse, yes.
Yeah.
So the home plates. And I think since a certain entity got involved, there's less and less and less.
That's what I had heard, yeah.
Having gone to certain games, or a decent chunk, thanks to some friends with tickets, the rack would be out there, bats, balls after, game balls from that night. But the jerseys were always interesting. But I think less as time has gone on.
But, to answer your question, no. I pretty much hockey's all I've got in the collection now. Had a Danny Espinosa Nats jersey for a bit, few Commander Skins jerseys. My dad was a massive Skins fan growing up. So, but yeah, I pretty much got rid of most of the non-essential kind of other sports stuff. So it's pretty much all Caps in the collection at this point. I've had, Caps adjacent stuff over the years, other team jerseys of players, Hershey, some Portland Pirates stuff, the usual kind of suspects of the Caps fans.
When you're looking to add a piece, is it, what does Derek Newton look for? Is there a rhyme or reason, Washington only, and then you can sort of subset it from underneath?
I feel like I'm the old school wear guy. I want it to look beaten up if at all possible. We're lucky, I feel like, with the Caps, because they do tend to wear their shirts a fair amount of time per set. I'd say 14-ish games is usually the minimum. Set ones every now and then, get extended to the 18, 19 every now and then. If the schedule works out, you might hit 20. But absolutely wear. And again, I have to thank Alan for that. He always told me in the early stages, he's like, player matters, but wear matters, and I'm still like that. If I have a shirt of a guy I like, if it's got okay wear, I'm always looking for a better one, to upgrade, so to speak. But other than that, I do like to fill in holes of favorite players. I've got an 11-year-old daughter now, and she's got her favorites, so that kind of comes into which ones I get. She's a Strome fan, so that's always something. And that's the other thing. My wife and daughter are big Caps fans too, and so we watch all the games. It's a kind of an event thing. So again, not jumping ahead, but the pre-order process is massive. I love to watch the shirts. That's for us, especially. I'll kind of whisper in my daughter's ear, "Oh yeah, that Red Wilson, yeah, that'll be here in a few months." That's always nice. And she's always like, "The one he's wearing?" I'm like, "Yeah, Harper, the one he's wearing." So that the pre-order process has always been big. I like the old stuff. I grew up going to Cap Center, the Ken Cleese, the Sylvain Cotes, those guys. I would say the most of my collection is focused on the more modern Rock the Red guys. Just because that's when we had season tickets. That's when we were in, Fairfax and Northern Virginia. But I'm always on the lookout for the old stuff too. I mean, as is everybody.
Of course. Talking to Derek Newton, it's Collector Profile. It's Tales from the Warehouse, volume 47. Talking a lot about the Washington Capitals, a team that we share an area from and collecting interests in. You mentioned wear and tear. Are there guys that you need to have, or it's wear above even name?
No. So, like I said early, Zubris was a favorite of mine, which I actually don't have a Zubris in the collection right now. I've had tons, and they've come and gone or been traded, sold to get something else. No, just kind of like play style. If I like the way the guy plays, I'll go out and always like Nick Dowd, guys like that. But I mean, Backstrom and Oshie are probably my two favorite of the modern Caps. Got a Backstrom, few Oshies. Oshie's always great because he generally has good wear too. I mean, that's the perfect scenario. Pre-order a shirt of a guy I like, and it comes with good wear.
Right.
But no, like of the new guys, I've always liked Jacob Chikrin. I don't know why. I just thought his play style is always good. He's fun to watch. I do like defensive men generally. I know they can be somewhat boring sometimes, but I feel like the Caps have had a good legacy of defensemen, dating back to when I was a kid. So it's kind of, and they usually log a lot of minutes, a lot of wear usually. Yep. Nick Jensen, of course, Farivari.
Known for his wear, Farivari, and also a 10 to 20 repair guy at times.
Yeah, I feel like those guys, it's like if they don't come in with 20, you're disappointed.
I see behind you, Derek. You've got a couple of whites, and you've got the black reverse retro. Is there a style need in the collection? Like, I've got to have outdoor games, I've got to have alts, I've got to have retros, I've got to have reds and whites. And again, you and I talked about it a little earlier in the podcast. We like the whites because they show marks, they show repairs. The reds obviously show plenty. No shade at the reds, but we prefer the white sweaters. Is there a, hey man, I gotta get one of the, reverse retro 1.0s. I love the Navy Marine Corps Stadium game. I love you fill in the blank. Are there styles that, you also, hey man, even if it's lacking wear because it may have just been a one-off for that special occasion?
No, I'd like all of the jerseys, honestly. I mean, I do, this is a personal thing, but I would like to see them go to an actual logo crest for a bit, as opposed to the word font that, they've had forever, just to change it up. Hence, I think that's why the retro, one of the reasons it's so popular, because it's actually got a logoed crest. But no, I really like the blues, the W and or the Annapolis game. And again, those, I feel like any of the thirds, the old red with the stars and, going down the arms.
Of course.
If you can get one with good wear, I mean, that's the perfect scenario. I've got a koozie blue third from, I want to say 2021, 22. That's got 20-ish repairs. So and that was just dumb luck. I pre-ordered it, didn't have a koozie at the time, I don't think. And that was when one of his up seasons, where he's another guy. I feel like over the years, I've seen jerseys that just kind of, they can come in with a board burn or two, or this one, like I said, it's got 18, 20 repairs and really good clumped repairs around the sleeve, ends of the sleeves. And that one's great. I've got an Oshie blue. That's same thing. It's for a third. It's got probably 5-6 repairs, but it's got good board burns, stuff like that. That's always great. If you can get a third with really good wear, that's tough to beat.
That's a winning connection right there. It's Tales from the Warehouse, volume 47, talking Caps, talking collecting with Derek Newton as our latest collector profile. You mentioned Backstrom. You mentioned Oshie. You mentioned the early Zuby, which you no longer have. Tell me a little bit about your favorite items, your standouts in your collection. And I know it's like picking a favorite.
I know. This is always I love this segment on the pod because it's always it's a lot of times it ends up being very different than what you think they're going to say.
There's no wrong answer, Derek.
Right.
And
Yeah.
B, you're like, you know what? I love, and then you're like, I like Marcus Johansson because he was there that night, or I watched him, on TV in my living room in front of a roaring fire, holding my baby daughter when she was X months. Like, other people, you never know. It's more about, whenever I say, tell me about your favorite piece or pieces, it's more about the connection with the sweater as opposed to, oh, I've got a Wayne Gretzky Indianapolis Racers. You're like, holy shnikey, that's awesome. Oh, okay. I like these stories too.
Yeah, definitely.
It's more about a connection with the piece.
The Backstrom hanging up behind me, I had a few white Backstroms over the years, and they were okay, good marks, a repair too. This one's probably the best one I'd gotten, pre-ordered it, ended up, I don't know, 12 or so repairs, a good big repair on the shoulder. I'm a sucker for shoulder repair. I don't know why, that's weird.
Right.
But like, I like the wear on the shoulders, burns, repairs. That one's just a personal favorite because it's Backstrom too, and it's the only one I currently have. The Eller behind me, so he wore that in the first 2 rounds of the Stanley Cup run, scored the double OT game winner against Columbus in it. That's one. It was just it. I want to say, I think I pre-ordered it right when the Columbus series started. And I was like, I didn't have anything at the time. We were in the process. I think we were either moving. It was like busy. Cats were, I hate to say it. I didn't think a lot of that season at that point. I was like, they'll, hopefully they'll win a series.
A lot of people did. Yeah, you weren't alone.
And so I was like, I got to have a little skin in the game. Hit the button for the Eller. I've always liked Eller. Good player, plays hard. And then, they're down 2-0, and the puck essentially ricochets off of him. He didn't really do much, but just be in the right place at the right time. And I was like, oh crap, I think I've got that. And then he went on when Backstrom got hurt against the Penguins. I think it was a broken hand or whatever. He filled in at the second center role and played great. And so they switched out for the Tampa Bay series. But the jersey behind me, he was wearing it for the first 2 rounds. It's got great modern wear. That's one I'd be hard pressed to move. And then the TVR, again, the reverse retros, there was such a fever for them. I feel like when they first came out, I had Orlov, I want to say reserved maybe, and I switched it to TVR just because I've always been a big Orlov fan, but I've got a bunch of Orlovs. So I was like, let me get somebody different, another defenseman. And it ended up, he assisted Ovi's, what was it? It was the goal that broke the most franchise record for most goals with one franchise. And it ended up, it came in with 2 repairs. They only wore him, I think, 3 games that year. And it's TVR, good solid player, nothing amazing. But it's a nice little bonus that he had the primary assist on Ovi's goal. And it's just a great style. I mean, it's awesome.
I like you, although you probably, a lot of people were in love with these from the get-go. They didn't speak to me until I got to see them in person. And
honestly, no, I agree. When Dave emailed me, I was kind of on the fence, honestly. I was like, they're cool. I was never a huge black, bronze, and white, era fan. I liked it.
It reminded me of Yager. That's why I couldn't, I was like,
yeah,
I want to get away from that.
Again, cap center, red, white, and blue.
Sure.
Liberty
the old parking, Eagle parking. Yeah.
Right.
The whole lot. Sure.
I had a hard time with it. I remember, in high school and all. And then, but once I got it in, I was like, all right, I'm glad and I'm glad I did it. Otherwise, I always default to the whites, the roads. And again, for me, I always think of the whites as being the home team wears white, road team comes in, you see the colors. I remember being cap center, the Pens came in with their black jerseys, or the Rangers came in with their blue. I've got a Hathaway white from the opening, the puck drop line brawl, when it was him, Dowd, Hagelin, I think, fought. And it was all the Wilson fallout after the Rangers issued the statement that he had done some crazy, vicious act against them, and that was the retribution when they all fought at the puck. I mean, I've got multiple good stills of the three of them and Wilson in the box, and the Hathaway's got a good stick mark on the front, so it's an easy match. And it's one of those jerseys, Hathaway's not any kind of superstar, but it's a cool piece to talk about.
No doubt. Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 47. I think I know the answer. White. But of all the different styles that they wore, obviously, and you can go early with the stuff that you saw at the Cap Center. You can go with Brian Bellows blue from that era, from, 97, 98, and Kolzig and Ranford. You can go with Yager black, if you will. You can go with the first iteration when they swapped over into the red. You can pick Winter Classic here. You can pick Winter Classic sort of retro-ish up at Heinz. The one that still I'm drawn to is the one that they wore. They wore it twice. And again, I asked you a question and I give you the answer because that's normally what I do here, Derek. I think the one, and I've said this before, the Eagle that they wore in the outdoor game against Carolina doesn't get enough love. I think that's just a crazy cool. I know it's an eccentric style, but it's super creative. Yet it hits home with a lot of the traditions of the color and the shoulder patch and the shape.
I really like it. I think if the team were in a better spot at that point, it would be regarded far higher.
Totally fair.
The design is great.
Oh, it's amazing. So over the last 50 years, do you have sort of a 1, 2, 3 or a 1, 2, or this is it? The list is 1 and it's blank.
No, I don't think I really do. I mean, again, the lighter jerseys always. I mean, I guess if I had to, I'd default to the old school red, white, and blue from the 90s, 80s era. The homes back then. But otherwise, no, I don't really have any. I get that a lot. Like somebody will post something on the boards and, I'll talk to them a little bit about it or something. And they're like, oh, well, what do you really want? I don't really have a preference, as far as style. I mean, it's not, I guess if I had to say, I do really like the blue, the recent blue thirds. I'm not crazy about the W on the front. That's the part, if I could change anything, I would. It would be the Weagle, so to speak. But I like the striping on the arms and the hemline. That reminds me of older jerseys from when I was a kid.
Sure.
And I think they got away from that a little bit in the Reebok days. And but again, I have bought a few Reebok jerseys in the last couple months. And I'm like, these actually aren't that bad, and it's like, it's always that way. I feel like, though, just like the Adidas jerseys now with the dimples, everyone's like, oh yeah, the dimples are great. The dimples stunk when they first came out.
Right.
So it's like, I mean,
it's like golf balls. Yeah. Why am I attracted to this? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the first thing, and then the new style comes in and people are like, all right, it's going to be terrible. I miss the dimples. I miss, they're
right.
Like, oh, okay.
The recent blue thirds, though, it's funny. They do show wear for a dark jersey. They show a lot of burns and scrapes really well. The way, I don't know if it's the lighting when the pictures are taken or whatever, but it's actually fairly easy to photo match them, which is always, a nice bonus.
Yes, and whether it was it is the white W that for goalies, or a stick mark will show up from miles away. I remember taking my kids to see Caps Predators, and Shepard played goal that night, and he was out of his mind. Even though Nashville won, Shepard made some great saves, and it was a sweater worn in a limited fashion, but there was right across that W, you could even see it from the other end of the rink. And I remember going home and being super tempted by the Getty images. I'm like, it's a really nice sweater. Yeah. And it's a connection. I saw, my wife was sick that night. She didn't go with us to the game, but we went, and I'm like, I took them maybe one day. I don't know if it's still up at MeiGray.com. Maybe it is, but we got to see it. we'll take a timeout and we'll talk just sort of on ice product. Very hot start this season. Capitals have been at or near, not near or at the top of the standings or the point total. And it's a pleasant surprise for all of us. I don't think any of us in the DMV thought they would be this good, especially this deep into the season. But even with an injury to number 8, even with a couple other guys in and out of the lineup, they've sustained and, past the midseason point now, give or take, injury to the backup goaltender. Talk to me about the team's chances. I mean, I was an odds guy in a previous iteration. One of my kids sent me, hey, Dad, look, the Caps are like, chances for a Stanley Cup Finals berth. Here they are. Do you think this is true? Like, well, they beat the Vegases of the world and the Colorados of the world and the Dallases of the world. Why can't they make a deep run, Derek?
Yeah, absolutely. They huge, super hot start, like you said. I think the 5-on-5 play has waned a little the last couple of weeks, which, I think that's normal. If you look historically back, most teams around the December, January, early February timeframe kind of have a dip in play. And I say the dip in play, I think they're 7-0-4 or something in their last 11, whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At home. And then overall.
Yes, they're still, the numbers are still there.
Yeah. I think they've gotten away from their game a little bit. Early in the season, I felt like they got the puck in deep, used their size, got it to the point, let the D shoot, and then they scored the age-old saying, the ugly goals, which this team traditionally doesn't do well. They want to make the perfect play, which was great. It was great to see pucks going in off of Wilson's leg or, whatever it was. And I think they're fine. Logan Thompson's been massive. Nothing against Charlie Lindgren. He's been great. I can't get over how great Thompson's been. And I think the Four Nations break will be great for them. I think it'll give the older players a little bit of rest. That's the other variable in all of this is the amount of influx of new talent. It's crazy to think that they mesh so quickly. And there's always going to be the bump in the road, which I think is what they're in now. I think the break will serve them well. Ovi and the Carlsons of the world, the Nick Dowds will get a little bit of rest. And I don't know. As a Caps fan, I'm never over the moon positive.
I hate to be cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
What happens, right?
But the additions have all been great. I don't think you could say an ill word about any of the new guys. So from that perspective, I can't complain. And the on ice product's been great. Even in this last couple of weeks, they've played a little bit more of a slower grinding style, and they've been able to grind out points. So cautiously optimistic.
There you go. As we record, it's, let's just say 20-ish for Ovi to break the mark. Again, we don't have to get into exacts, but do you think it happens this season?
If you would have asked me in the first 20 games of the season, no matter how he started, I would have said no way in hell. Just the factors of age, wear and tear. Coming off of last year, there were bright spots. Strome was a bright spot, of course. But I still, selfishly, I kind of want him to not break it this season. And then that way we get the entire off season, which I don't know if that's good for him.
Right.
For the NHL to build up around it and make a big hoopla around it. It's probably better for him and the team if he does it this year. On the fly. I know there's been, I think Bettman and Gretzky said they're going to be in attendance when he gets close. That's, of course, that's great. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. No, but even if you're a fan of the other sports and you remember back with, the Sosa McGuire.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where my mind went.
Maris family being, for those guys, love them or hate them, and bonds and it just once there's just an immense amount of pressure, even more than there is now during the chase for those guys. And from their perspective, it's got to be. And again, it's a good thing. It's a good problem to have that
Yeah.
you're number 2, soon to hopefully be the number 1 all-time goal scorer in the history of the National Hockey League. It's got to be a weight there.
Yeah. So, and again,
EHT, yes.
For him, I think it's best to break it this season. Just go on and get it out of the way. Because I actually think, to your point, it's got to be a massive, I hate to say burden, but
right.
And the closer we get, it's only going to, multiply.
Of course.
But, I just wanted to break it. This year's fine. I don't want to get too picky.
Understood. It's Tales from the Warehouse, volume 47 again, and we're about to talk about it. We open up the podcast with it. It is pre-order time as things go into NHL program director Jeff Spade. They come in from the team, boxes upon boxes, set one. Did you order this? Did you get in line? Did you get who you wanted? Did you, all the closeouts happening? And it's like Christmas in January as things go from the teams, the partner teams, to MeiGray, and then to your home. And you may have started watching on night number 1 when your team opened up the regular season. You're like, wow, that one's mine. And I've said this before. I'm a huge fan of the MeiGray marketing statement. That's my jersey. He's just borrowing it or wearing it for a little bit. And it's just a kick. And you mentioned watching a game with your daughter and saying, hey, that's our sweater. That's my sweater. And then you start to press pause on the broadcasts when there's a close in on, I'll just throw it out there, whether it's Logan Thompson or a tight shot of Jacob Chikrin on the bench and a water squeeze. And you're like, hey, look at that. There's a huge mark. I see, or the between periods interview where the guy kept his sweater on and you can make out the boatload of cluster of repairs up and down the elbow. And that's what it's like to live in the moment of the pre-order excitement, which is pretty indescribable when you have, quote unquote, as you put it so eloquently a few minutes back, skin in the game. So you've pre-ordered jerseys from MeiGray in the past. Tell me, about sort of the ease of usage, if you will. As we mentioned, sales at MeiGray.com. I'm interested in this player. Do you have him in a set 2, as it were? Talk to me about that, Derek.
Yeah, it's kind of this, you guys go over it on most of the podcasts. Just shoot an email to sales at MeiGray. It's so easy. And the worst, just get on the request list. It doesn't matter who it is. It can be any player, top, bottom, middle, guy in Hershey. Doesn't matter. Just say, hey, I want Scott Linn's jersey if he gets called up. And there's a pretty good chance you're going to get a shot at one. It may not be his first, but it'll be one of them. And that, again, like you said with my daughter, once I explained how it works, because, it kind of blew her mind. She was like, wait a minute, the jerseys they're wearing now, I was like, yeah, those shirts will be worn roughly the first 15 away games or whatever it ends up being. And she kind of started, I could see the gears grinding. And then so now every game, she's like, oh, he just scored or got in a fight or did this, or she sees that mark now. She's even trained to do that. And I'm like, no, we don't have that one. Oh, but we do have that one.
There you go.
So, it's fun. And we go to, haven't this year, but we go to a lot of Hurricanes Caps games because it's, easy drive to Raleigh, great arena, good fan base. The Hurricanes fans are great. And Orloff plays there. So
of course.
Yeah.
Right. There's Tom.
Yeah. But, and again, it's a white away game. So those are even better. But yeah, the pre-order process is, for me, sure, I would love to have a collection of old school shirts from the 80s and 90s. As Caps fans, we all know those are tough to get. Mm-hmm. They're in a lot of closets and they don't come out very often. So
come out for show and tell.
Right.
They awesome. And we know a lot of those guys and we're friendly with them. And it's,
you kind of know where they all are, which is, that's half the battle.
Yes.
So for me, the pre-order process, like I said, with my wife and daughter being big fans, gives us something other than just the on-ice product to root for. It gives us something else to watch and investment in, and it's easy. Again, request list, or just hit the site and, this year may be a little different with set 1 because of the 50th patch.
Mm-hmm. Very popular.
Yeah. But, generally, you're going to have your favorite guys that are a little tougher to get, but even still, you know, in October, email Dave or sales at MeiGray and say, hey, Tom Wilson may be gone from set 1, but hey, set 2 or 3, you know, whatever it may be. And it just kind of, that process and that fun of watching home games or away games, whatever you have, it just makes it a little more interesting.
So now the big reveal. Have you pre-ordered any from set 1? Would you like to share? Would you like to divulge some some classified information?
Guilty as charged, as long as my wife doesn't see this.
She's a huge listener.
Yeah.
Especially
I want to say one of each, home, away, and the third.
Very well done, sir.
And then maybe one of each from set 2, or at least home and away. I don't think I got another third.
Okay.
And again, from day-to-day watching and Getty images and Google images and all that, the wear seems to be pretty good.
Good for you.
I just across the board even. I mean, even when I'm looking for a Jacob Chikrin red set 1, I don't know why I would look for that. But
right. I'm not going to ask you for players. We're just going to play the hint game until
when he scored his first goal as a Cap. When
that is of interest to you for some reason. Sure,
right.
Of course.
But, it's great when you see those images of them celebrating and, Ovi's actually got a repair on his right arm. You know, you're looking for so-and-so, but you see that Wilson's got a shoulder repair or whatever. That's also the fun of it too. Like, I just love that kind of day-to-day, game-to-game. Oh, there's a real dark mark on his shoulder this game, and it's a little lighter the next one because they washed it, but it's still there, And early reports, sounds like the Fanatic shirts, they show marks pretty well. So
the marks are the marks are there. And again, if you were lucky enough to get your hands on the caps, you mentioned Nick Jensen earlier. The Caps are known for the most part. Kuzi, Dowd, players you mentioned earlier, John Carlson. There are guys who are known for, and the Caps as an organization are known for putting forth some really good wear. So no matter what style of sweater, no matter what brand they were wearing / are wearing, they've been pretty good over the last couple of years with getting some elbow grease and some board paint and some repair action. Because the Caps are so popular, this question sort of goes in and out. I'd like to ask I just saw a guy with a hat trick, and then you go to the website, you go to MeiGray, you go to your email, sales@meigray.com, or you reach out to Dave, who's the Capital sales lead. It may have already been spoken for, but in your history of pre-ordering, were you able to catch, and I know, we talked about the Eller and what he wound up doing, but a lot of the times you want some skin in the game and you're a collector. The momentous save, the key goal, the game winner, the big fight, that hasn't happened yet a lot of times. And it's just luck. You're like, I just like this player, or I just like the style of game this player plays. And wow, he wound up doing this in it.
Yeah. Last season, I actually didn't have a specific example. I didn't have a set 3 pre-ordered. Home game, I think it was against the Hurricanes. Milano comes out, scores pretty quick goal, scores a second fairly quick, and I jumped on, and I was like, I'm just going to take a peek.
There? Right.
And it was there, so bought it, and then he ended up getting the hat trick, and Jeff and those guys were good enough to put that in the LOA. And that was just dumb luck. And so Sonny Milano is another one. I really like him. He's fun to watch. I know he's not a perfect player.
Right.
Yeah. But I've got 2 shirts of his, one being that hat trick jersey. I think it's red set 3 from last year. And that was just a total. I took a chance after the second goal, and then he got the third, and that was his first career hat trick, I believe. But I have a white of his from 2 seasons ago that is just mangled. The shoulder, the right, I think it's the right shoulder alone, has probably 7 or 8 big repairs right on in between like the Weagle and the number. And it's, you don't look at him as like a hard type player. Right. But it's just, some of those guys just end up that way. Now I've seen other shirts of his that, have the 2 or 3, repairs here or there.
Basic wear, right?
Yeah. But the red one, the hat trick game, ended up, it was set 3, so I don't know what the final count was, probably 10 games maybe, but it ended up, I think it's got 8 to 10 good repairs, some marks.
It was used in the playoff series against the Rangers,
yep.
right? So it's, they all tell a story. They all tell a story from a certain game. Again, we go back to the phrase skin in the game. What motivates you as a collector to pre-order rather than waiting? Is it, I want to watch this. There's nothing like seeing them wear. But the question's to you, sir.
Yeah, generally, I would say like player-specific holes in the collection. If I don't have a certain style or color of John Carlson, I'll email Dave or sales in MeiGray and say, hey, if there are any available coming down the pike, I don't have a white or whatever it is. And especially this year with such a influx of new talent, there are a lot of options. I've never been a massive PLD fan, Pierre-Luc Dubois.
I love now that
but he's been great.
Right.
Yeah. Now Chychrun, I did like him in his previous stops, so that was a no-brainer. But generally, I want to say it's player specific, but like I said, if it's after the fact, it's wear based. But generally, my pre-orders are based on, hey, I like player A. I don't really have a red, so let's get that, or I don't have a white, or I don't have anything. Back when Orlov was here, he was Dmitry Orlov, great player, but he's not expensive.
Sure.
But
that's attractive too.
Yeah, sure.
It's very popular.
That never hurts.
The offense. I mean, there's, yes, I having owned a piece or two of his over time, love him. So,
if you can get in relatively, lower price point, that's just a bonus. But yeah, it's really just kind of filling in, like the TVR behind me. It was like, I didn't have a TVR, wanted a retro. That was pretty much that.
Cool style player I need, check and check. It's Tales from the Warehouse, volume 47, doing a collector profile with our new friend, Derek Newton, talking a lot about the Caps. Derek, just a couple more for you, and you've been incredibly generous with your time. Is there a Grail item that you'd like to add? Is there a Grail item that you own, no matter, I love the phrasing of the question, no matter how impossible it would be to acquire?
So yes, I would say I'd like to be able to match this Eller from the first 2 rounds with the Eller that he scored in Game 5, the cup clinching goal.
Sure.
That would be fun. Pricey, but fun. Maybe perfect world, like an old school hammered Ovi. I mean, something from his first couple seasons where he wore it for 10 games or whatever it was back then, Other than that, I do, like I said earlier, I do have a hole in the collection for the early stuff. And when I say early, like when I was going to games as a kid, I would like to add more there. Again, easier said than done for the Caps. Other than that, I do not own a Cup Finals patch jersey. I've had some here or there, and a deal came through and I ended up trading it, I think. So that's always something on the radar to get back in the collection. But another Eller, the Eller from Game 5 would be nice to match with that one. And then an Ovi with, I'll just throw a random 12 repairs out there. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Stick marks or, because I do not own an Ovi. So.
Got it. So the Grail search is out there. Here's what Derek's looking for.
Sure.
You've been doing this for quite some time. Trends you like, trends you don't like with the hobby?
I mean, I think we're spoiled with the Caps community. Pretty close knit. Whether you know everybody or not, you know kind of where everything is to a degree. Maybe from a technology perspective, if we can get even better tracking of stuff, I don't even know if that's possible.
MeiGray does a really good job.
Well,
we are spoiled because
that's where I was going to go. We as Caps fans are spoiled. and I'm not to speak ill of anyone, but like the teams like the Hurricanes or the other teams that kind of do it in-house, there's always questions. And I know those collectors have their own ways of knowing everything and folks that can help. But, again, like I don't even think about that kind of stuff with the Caps. Now, if it's an older shirt, well, again, spoiled again, because if it's an older shirt, it's probably coming from someone that we all know. So there's really no real questions about it. Always do your homework. Look for photo matches, video matches for the older stuff. But I don't know. That's the one thing on the podcast when I've listened, I'm always kind of like asking myself, and I don't know. I mean, it is interesting how, the technology aspect can maybe get even better. But I don't have anything specifically.
It's hard to fathom where we were compared to where we are.
Yeah.
Even, and again, when I first got into this, which is 30 years ago, if I come across a vintage piece, and God bless and Godspeed to the great authenticators who have so many different resources. But if I'm still trying to do it at home and I go to a picture where I'm like, wait, what? Or, standard definition, we all were raised on it, and black and white TV, but you look at some of these photos and then you wind up thinking, how am I supposed to do that? And there are matches to be found. It's absolutely amazing. But now we're spoiled. Technological advances have been otherworldly and make for very, very happy collectors.
Yeah.
Mr. Newton, this has been an absolute pleasure. I wish you a very happy unboxing when the ones come in. One red, white, one reverse retro, and then a couple of set twos. We'll meet at an expo, and I'll get to see what you got at a later point. But
absolutely.
And thanks for joining us. It's Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 47, as we draw ever closer to our own milestone, episode number 50.
Nice.
For Derek, I'm Scott. Until next time, the warehouse is closed.